So, hello everyone, welcome to Gameweek 8 of the Premium Player FPL podcast. It's been a long old international break, but maybe some of us might have needed it after the barbaric Gameweek 7, which took many an FPL team down with them. So, so good to get going again this week. Joined as always by Mr. Mindy himself.
I like how you always introduce me as Mr. Mindy. What's that from?
I don't know. Just Mr. Mindy. I like to be official, mate.
Fair play. Yeah, it was a horrible game week 7, especially for me as I just wildcarded. It's probably one of the worst things in FPL, isn't it, when you have a bad game week just after you've wildcarded. So looking to put that behind me. I've enjoyed the break, as you say, much needed. At least the average was low. I think people who did well last week had, like Azpilicueta or Jimenez, players like that, not that highly owned. So it wasn't a complete disaster. But yeah, not great. There's a lot of people wildcarding this week, so that'll be something we talk about. Using the international break to wildcard has been a popular time to do that. We're live. Any questions? Get them in the comments. And other admin. Is it Saturday deadline again this week?
Yeah, Saturday. Yeah.
We're recording
on a Wednesday. Saturday. Otherwise there'll be a Brazil flight stuck in midair for the Friday game. Up.
And what else? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at @premium_FPL. We're recording on Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. for people listening on the podcast afterwards. And you've got some admin to share with everyone, haven't you? You've got you're going to be the new official City
Pep
team
roulette correspondent. Yeah. So if when City are playing an early game, I'll be the one leaking it on a burner Twitter account. No, I'm joking. Then obviously not. But but yeah, very much excited to get going. Hopefully implement our fantasy knowledge into what I'll be doing somehow. So that should be exciting.
Yeah. So it's be nice having you out of my shadow finally, spreading your wings somewhere else. So you gonna share anything else about what you're gonna be doing?
So we'll be working on the live program for match day, which will be exciting. So obviously the pre, during, and then post game. So filming the VTs ahead of it, and then also working on the live program, which should be exciting, especially if the rumours today with big old Haaland joining next summer. That'll be exciting. Although for City fans, we know striker is not that easy. I think the last 3 summers now have been plagued by transfer talk and ended up with nothing. So not going to get carried away too much, but yeah, nice headlines this morning to wake up to.
Nice. Yeah, congrats on the move. We'll get into the FPL stuff before we bore everyone to tears. Should we get through the running order?
Yeah.
So obviously we'll do our game week reviews. It probably makes sense for you to do your team first from last week, and then I'll go through my team and do the post-mortem in one go. And obviously, with it being the international break, injuries, red flags everywhere, and a club got bought by some rich people. So we'll talk about that, what the implications might be for FPL there. And then, as there's so many people wildcarding over the international break, we've got an example of a team from someone in the FPL community, which we'll run through and just have a look at anything we'd advise for people who are wildcarding this week. Then we've got the weekly Snog Marry Avoid section, which will be Callum this week, going through his buy, hold, sell prospects from his team. And then the ever-present premium planning, going through captains and transfers and looking ahead a bit into the future.
Yeah, all very exciting. So I'll run through my team quickly. So mine's here. I think I got 29 points, but with the -8, 21, which is, barbaric. But players are brought in: Cancelo, Rudiger, Rafinha, I kind of wanted to get in early because I probably wouldn't have been able to afford them a week or two down the line. So don't regret those moves too much. But yeah, it didn't pay off this week. Thankfully, Salah bailed most people out. But other than that, no one else scoring other than Sanchez. So Sanchez, Cancelo, Rudiger, Marcel, Salah, Benrahma, Rafinha, Ronaldo, Lukaku captain, which couldn't believe he didn't score still. Hit posting in and offside just for one. And then Antonio blank as well. So yeah, a bit of a barbaric week for me. I just about forgot about it up until today and realised we were recording a podcast. And I was like, oh God, I've got to look at my FPL, look at the damage that it's caused. So yeah, look, things are looking all right this week for my team. Kind of reliant really on Ronaldo scoring at Leicester because everyone seems to have took him out and then make that decision. So I'm going to bank a transfer this week. So this will be the same team that goes again next week, other than Duffy comes in for Marcel for that Norwich fixture. So yeah, fingers crossed for a better game week. This is your wildcard team.
You've gone through your transfers and everything. You won't have anything to say now for the rest of the podcast. That's you done for your contribution.
I'm not doing any moves this week because
well, yeah. As long as if there's a notable injury or something at the Presses, you might get forced into something.
Yeah. Probably is where this year's going. Probably will be.
So yeah, this is my team. So what points did I get? I got 42 and third red arrow in a row, which is very unpleasant. Speaking of unpleasant, I've got another little story actually. You'll probably find this funny. Just a little tangent, it's not relevant at all. But went to the gym for the first time in ages before, and
didn't collapse, did you?
Well, no, I didn't collapse, but I was just I must have been looking like I was struggling on the bench press, trying to do the same weight as I did before my little break from the gym, and I had that dreaded moment that you see in comedy films or whatever, where some massive dude comes over and it's like, your technique's off, mate. And he was like, you need to be like, going down here, get your elbows in and all this. And I was like, all right, yeah, cheers, mate, thanks. And then I just thought that'd be the end of it. But then he stayed stood there, and he was like, right, I'm gonna do this next set with you. And I was like, oh my God, it's like I'm in a PT session for 5 minutes. I was like,
what exercise is it?
The bench press.
Right.
So he stayed there, this like big like European, built like a Bond villain sort of character, and I was just there like shaking on the press. Like I was like, I hope I do this right, otherwise he's gonna have a go at me.
Right? Did you get full marks after that?
I think he was too embarrassed to say anything after that. I think he was just let me get on with it. I think, but yeah, I could do with someone like that coming and having a go. Giving me advice on my form during my wildcard selection might have helped me. I'll have to bear that in mind for next season. Get down the gym and ask the big bulky European bloke what he thinks. But yeah, anyway. So my team. So I'm pretty happy with the players I picked overall. It was just a bad week, like in terms of the City double defense. Those players getting zero was very unfortunate, but I kind of knew that might happen against Liverpool. But the fixtures that City have got coming up, I'm glad to have them in long term. So, and as we'll talk about later, the City attacking options are so hard to know which one to get. I did think that getting 2 defenders might be a better way to get City assets in. Rudiger was so annoying that he created that chance for Lukaku, which was offside. I was just tallying up the points in my head when that happened, and then as you say, the way the season's going, obviously, I had the rug pulled from under my feet there. Mbomo. I said the other week I was going to definitely learn how to pronounce his name, but still not forgotten that. That's one to add to the homework list. But I'm happy to have him. I think a lot of people are now looking at getting him. The decision, one of the final decisions for me when I was doing the wild card was him versus Gallagher. and I think Gallagher was brought off early in the last game, so I'm not completely sure if Mbomo is like totally nailed on, but given his goal and the way he's been linking up with Tony, hopefully he'll stick around for this good run that Brentford have got coming up. Salah and Rafinha, there's not really much to say. Most people have them as locks in their team. Mount is a player I probably, of all the picks, like Mount's the one I regret the most, I think. Just the idea was to have him as a 1 week punt for that Southampton game and then switch to a City midfielder. But yeah, it didn't really pay off with Mount only coming off the bench, getting 27 minutes, something like that. So not sure what I'm going to do there now.
Though, I think Chelsea do look worse without him, so I think he will get a consistent run in the team now. He was just coming back from injury, wasn't he? So
yeah,
that's one to bear in mind. I do think Chelsea look a lot better with him in the team, especially Lukaku looks a lot better with Mount in the team.
Well, when I was talking through that plan with you, you didn't tell me at the time, oh well, he might not start. He's just coming back from injury. Captain hindsight. Was that a bit of gamesmanship? Yeah, Mindy, you get Mount in. He's definitely going to start.
Pretty much, although it seemed to work.
And then Lukaku and Antonio. That's a pretty as template as it gets for the forward two. What I maybe should have done was instead of Mount, have like a third striker, like I was saying before, people who had Jimenez or I don't know if anybody had Hwang last week, but lots.
I thought you were going to say I should have had Hwang in. That would have been captain hindsight. You know.
No, but I think there will be a lot of people going that way. What are your thoughts on Hwang? Just while we're on him, do you think he's nailed on?
In the games he's obviously looked. Jimenez is playing a lot deeper, so you are getting the number 9 for Wolves if he's playing. It's just one of them, isn't it? If he has a bad game, next game is he straight out the team again, kind of thing. That's what you kind of relying on, keeping that form. I think he'll definitely get the next game, like after that performance. It's just, yeah. Can you? I suppose when you spending 5.5 or 5.6 on a forward, that kind of comes with the territory, isn't it? You're not going to get someone who's scoring goals for every week playing 90 minutes. So there is a case to have him, and then if you have maybe doubling up with a Mbeumo and then hope one of them plays each week, that might be the way to do it.
So I'm going Mbeumo and you're going Mbeumo. We're definitely gonna have to sort out some consistency at some point. But anyway, just to wrap this up, one decision I was happy with was I think Trent's gonna be back this week, so I did keep Trent on my bench, so I've got him to come back, which I'm glad I did because I just didn't want to have to make that transfer to bring him back. With all the other things that are happening in FPL at the moment, like the idea of booking in a transfer for Trent wasn't appealing. So 42 points all in all. It was a small red arrow from 4. I think I went from like 440 to 467. Yeah, I went from 448k to 467k. So clinging on in the top 500k. But it's also bunched up still at the minute. But yeah, hopefully be moving up soon. Hopefully the benefits of the wildcard will start to show over the next few weeks.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll move on to. So this is obviously the big thing that comes off the back of the international break is injuries, injury doubts, and obviously people back late. So these are 3 here. So Rudiger, Lukaku, Jota. So they're probably. Would you say they're probably the main 3 alongside Rafinha? But these obviously 3 are injury doubts ahead of the weekend that are coming back from internationals. I think the Lukaku one, he didn't get the last game in the last international break, so I think that's something that might have been discussed with Chelsea ahead. So I wouldn't be too worried about him. The 2 people I'm probably more concerned about is Rudiger and Jota, especially because Rudiger didn't play the North Macedonia game. He wasn't even on the bench for that, but was still with the squad. And Jota got sent home early. So I think those 2 are probably more concerns than Lukaku. I'll be very surprised if Lukaku's not playing against Brentford, but you never know in this situation, do you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not an FPL sort of direct implication, but Varane picking up the injury for France was notable because Maguire's still out. So I think that's just going to harm United's prospects even further. So
is it time to bring in Phil Jones or not?
It's never time to bring in Phil Jones, is it? I mean, I do feel for the guy.
He'll play there now. It's not Lindelof and Matic, maybe McTominay.
I mean, but I think if Bailly's fit, he should.
Bailly, yeah. Forgot about him.
So, someone who we never speak, someone who we never speak about, and we probably should start speaking about is Vardy. So he could have a field day against a makeshift United defense, because we've been looking very easy to counter attack against, even with the first choice team out. So yeah, people who've avoided the template and gone for Vardy will be doing quite well. He's towards the top of the forward rankings, but not many people in the community seem to have him. I think it's just the awkward price, isn't it? Like, he's quite a bit more than Antonio, and he's not quite the premium option you want to be captaining each week, like a Lukaku or a Salah or something. But yeah, he's definitely a consideration now. Serious consideration. It's hard to ignore him when he just keeps bagging and he's on pens.
And Iheanacho's probably a goal or two away from another kind of people getting him in as well. But obviously with Hwang, there's rotation phase there. But he got a goal, didn't he? On his first start of the season against Palace. So keep scoring. People will be rushing to him, I'm sure.
So the other thing to touch on is the Brazil issue, isn't it? What are your thoughts there? Like, what are you going to do with Rafinha this week?
As a Rafinha owner, it is very concerning. I think Liverpool have already said it's Liverpool the first game of the weekend. There's a team who said their players aren't going to be back, which, Liverpool's the first one against Watford. So that rules out Alisson and Fabinho. I think Firmino didn't travel. So I think Leeds is 3:00, isn't it? So if Alisson's not playing and he's a goalkeeper, then it doesn't sound too promising for an outfielder, especially if you're starting that game. But it's one of them, isn't it? You don't really want to sell Rafinha with the fixtures that are coming up. So you're reliant there on your bench coming in.
Yeah, I'm definitely not selling Rafinha. It's just I'm wondering whether I might just leave him in the first 11 and see what happens.
I think that.
But then, say if he gets like a 20-minute cameo, that could be annoying. So I'm not sure on that. Because I've got
the way football.
I'll have Mbomo or Smith Rowe as first on my bench. So I could just start one of them and then put Rafinha on the bench. But I'm hopefully Bielsa gives some insight onto the likelihood of Rafinha getting minutes, because there is that annoying chance that maybe he gets like a 10-minute cameo.
Yeah, what is it? It's 27 hours before, and I just think the way football is now with the red zone and players and stuff, I'm probably erring to the side that he won't play. But then on the counter to that, there's not many teams in the league who are reliant on one player, especially if Bamford's still injured. Like, Rafinha is a massive loss, isn't it, to that Leeds team? So I suppose if there is one player that's going to be risked,
they've got Super Danny James up their sleeve now.
Yeah, I think that sums it up.
So, what would you advise for Jota owners?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because he returned from injury, and with Firmino's probably had 2 weeks full training now, because he was back at Liverpool. I think this game, I'd be very surprised if it's not Firmino instead of Jota, but could be wrong. I mean, going forward, Jota is still an unbelievable option, isn't it? His price point, but maybe with the emergence of the City players now, that's where we're turning my attention to.
Yeah, because there'll be a lot of people who might have Rafinha and Jota, and they might not be able to afford to bench, have two of those not playing this week. So if I was in that position, I'd definitely hold Rafinha, I think, over Jota, just because I think with Firmino back, there will be that shared. They will be sharing minutes a lot more over the next few. I'm trying to think if there's any other notable injuries or anything we need to.
No, I think those are the ones that I'm trying to think off the top of my head. No, I'm sure something else will come. The next talking point is obviously the big ownership. So obviously Newcastle have been taken over by Saudi Arabia. If you've not seen that, where have you been? But this kind of graphic just puts into context what we are likely to see from this regime going forward. When you see the wealth there, they're 10 times as well, more than 10 times actually. Quite more than that, like 12, 13 times. But anyway, a lot richer than the Man City, who obviously in second richest owners in the world. So net worth 320 billion. So that kind of put that into context. They're going to want to make changes fast. So I think the manager will be first, and then players from there. So I think it's an exciting time to be a Newcastle fan, whatever your thoughts are on the situation. But it'd be interesting to see what kind of happens to Newcastle in terms of FPL point of view, whether a new manager bounce might kind of Wilson might become more popular in players like that. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, have I frozen on your stream?
Yeah, you have.
That's really annoying. I'm in such an awkward pose in that as well. Oh, have you just re-added me?
Yeah. No, you just blank.
It's probably better to leave me blank than have me there just sort of awkwardly itching my face or whatever I was doing. At least it wasn't
the voice from the abyss.
At least it wasn't like my cum face or something that got stuck on.
Might put a picture of you bench pressing. That might be a good
avatar. What was I going to say?
This is like, the first time it's happened.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's not come up with any warning signs, and my internet's stayed connected. It's very, very. I'll try and figure that out while we go. But looking at the comparison between City and Newcastle's funds, it's a bit like comparing my bank balance and yours, isn't it? I'm Saudi Arabia, obviously.
Yeah, it must be. You must be a better negotiator.
What are Newcastle's fixtures like? Do you think like they will have a bounce?
I've not actually looked at Newcastle's. I know Watford are another team actually who've got a new manager in Cardio Ranieri, and their fixtures are very tricky. But let's look at Newcastle. So Newcastle obviously got Spurs this weekend, so maybe they are giving Bruce that game. And if they get beat, it's an easy sacking, isn't it? And then if he wins that game, obviously it makes the decision a bit more difficult. But then after that, we've got Palace, Chelsea, Brighton, Brentford, Arsenal, Norwich, Burnley. So there is winnable fixtures there in amongst Chelsea and Arsenal. But Arsenal is no strong fixture these days, despite their recent bout. So maybe they will give him that Tottenham game, and if they get beat there, then the new manager might come in, and that if they kind of bring in a manager with an attacking philosophy, we know how good Wilson is as an FPL asset in the past. So he'll probably be the one that players will go for if they do have an upturn in form. You back?
Oh, I just tried changing the resolution from HD to standard definition. So the viewers will probably prefer seeing my face in standard definition rather than high definition anyway. I'm not even sure it makes a difference. My camera, this camera's not great. But yeah, it's 4K. I wouldn't. I'm not personally going to be jumping on any Newcastle options off the back of this. I think if they did get a new manager in, then I'd probably be more keen to have a look, just because the new manager bounce is definitely a thing, and I'd want to wait and see what Newcastle look like when Callum Wilson is back, because he makes such a difference to them going forwards. So yeah, I think we're probably saying it's not really something that's on our radar currently, but probably will be soon.
January will be interesting if they get a few marquee players that might shake things up a bit in the FPL, but whether those changes will come that quick, you don't know. It might be summer before the players come in. Move on to next. So the next section is just people who are playing the wildcard this week. If Mindy was to play it this week, would you have any changes? So this is a graphic from TED Talks that we use quite often. That we use from TED quite often, isn't it? So this kind of just puts into context team players that are getting big attempts. There's also small attempts as well, aren't there?
Yes, it's interesting to see. Just like Salah and Antonio still holding it down in a lot of the key metrics, which is why no one's looking to sell them. Speaking of, we just spoke about Newcastle. St. Max is there in the mix, and my guy Mbomo, he's It's interesting to see how closely he's mirroring Tony, because Tony's obviously the better option at Brentford because he's on pens. But if you look at their combined stats, I think Tony's expected assists is way higher, but Mbomo's expected goals is higher. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out over the rest of the season. Would you, when Brentford's fixtures turn, would you consider like a double up there, or would you just pick one?
Yeah, no, it's very much something that I'm looking at. I've kind of mapped out the next 4 transfers that I'll do over the next 3 or 4 game weeks, and yeah, those two. I just think for the value that they offer, and I think after the Chelsea fixture, they got unbelievable set of fixtures, aren't they? And both 90-minute men. And Boomer might come off a few minutes early, but the majority of games have 90 minutes. So I just think the value that they're offering this season, I wouldn't be against advocating a double up soon.
Yeah, and obviously Ronaldo's still prominent there. But if you were wildcarding this week, would you still have him or not? Lukaku over him or both?
No, probably wouldn't go Ronaldo. I am tempted, like I will be doing it, but if you still got him this week, I'd be tempted to keep him if you're not on wildcard, just because of that Leicester fixture. Leicester's defense does not look great this season, so I'm this is his last chance. It feels weird, last chance saloon, because he's not actually played that many games. But I just think the way United are playing at the moment, and those fixtures do look a bit difficult. It's going to be tricky to see returns in the future. But who knows? He gets a couple of goals against Leicester, and people's opinion change again, don't they? It's quite a small live scale each game week. People react to what happens to a game week, don't they?
Yeah, I think people who don't have Lukaku yet, loads of people have earmarked next week to do Ronaldo to Lukaku because Chelsea have Norwich next, like the week after this one. So I can see. I reckon even if he scored like a brace this week, and I think those people would still do that, just because I heard someone before talking about their FPL point score, and they calculated that 20% of their points so far this season from their players had come against Norwich. So it's quite good. Like to get a fifth of your points just from the players that are playing against Norwich is quite striking, isn't it? So that game could be a bit of a massacre if Chelsea are on form. So yeah, I think with him being the standout captain option, which we'll probably talk about in that week as well. I think it's definitely there'll definitely be loads of people moving from Ronaldo then, which is hard to argue against. Is there anyone else?
One thing I would say on Ronaldo now, I think he's pretty much nailed to play every Premier League game just because of what happened that last Premier League game. Obviously, him not playing.
Oh yeah, we should probably touch on that. Actually, we didn't talk about that. The surprise mention. Like nobody saw that coming.
No, I just think the whole aftermath. It's almost like bloody Hollywood blockbuster, isn't it? Ronaldo not playing it. Like it was always going to get made a bigger deal just because it was him. So I just think now Ollie's not gonna not play him. I don't think in Premier League games because I just think the aftermath of him storming off after he's only got 20 minutes. I don't think it's worth it, especially with Ollie's job on the line. It'd be interesting to see whether Ronaldo was actually an Ollie signing or it was United, because he's got a lot of players to try and fit in now and keep happy, hasn't he, with Cavani and Martial as well as Ronaldo. It's not just Ronaldo that he's got to play, but I do think there was a big deal made at the end of that. Obviously, with pundits saying you can't bench Ronaldo, so I think he's going to be pretty much untouchable here on in whilst Ollie's in charge.
Yeah, I do wonder though. Like it came out afterwards that there was this thing about how when he was at Juventus, he never did 3 sets of 90 minutes within 7 days, or last season either. And that is what it would have been if he'd played if he'd started against Leicester. It would have been 3 sets of 90 minutes within a 7-day period. So I've seen some stuff about how it might have been like Ronaldo's decision to bench himself or something. Like, it's hard to know, isn't it? But he is someone.
I think if that was the case, though, Ollie would have said that after the game, just because it would have took the pressure off instantly, wouldn't it?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because the thing about him walking off in a strop, like I think some of that was kind of just him being really unhappy about how the game went. Like when Fred missed his opportunity to clean out Damari Gray, and then Everton scored, and he was like just jumping about on the halfway line saying, "You need to clatter him." That's what he was saying. He was just getting angry at how inept, the whole team was.
I thought he just wanted to punch Townsend after his celebration.
Are you kidding?
I'm joking.
No, because I wondered when I was watching live, I was like, "What's he doing that for?" And then it made sense afterwards. So yeah, I think some of the frustration might have been the way that game went, and obviously Townsend's celebration probably didn't help. But yeah, it's something to watch out for. Like I think if United do have one of those runs where they have 3 games in 7 days again, and Ronaldo's started 90 in the first 2, it's just something you've got to think about in the back of your head there, I think. So yeah. Interesting to see.
Maybe if it is an easier fixture, then yeah. I think what's tricky now is they've got to win every European game, haven't they? So yeah, you won't be getting rested in Europe. So we'll move on to the wild card. So this is from Mr. Ben Krellin. If you don't follow him, one of the most famous names in the Twitter community who plays fantasy football. So he's just kind of released what his first draft he's thinking of doing for game week 8. So we were just going to pick apart this, whether we agree with it or not. A few differences to what Mindy played last week, which makes it interesting for sure.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with Ben Krellin, I think this is the first time he's had a mention this season, because he sort of comes to the fore more around double game weeks, and the way he's like a visionary when it comes to where the fixtures are going to be moved to, etc. So yeah, he's on wildcard this week. So I don't know if this is his current team. This is one he tweeted out when he did his first draft. So I'll quickly run through it for the podcast listeners. So he's got Sanchez and Foster as his 2 keepers. Defenders, he's got Trent, Cancelo, Rudiger, Walker, Ben White. Midfield, Salah, Son, Rafinha, Mbomo, and then Norman from Norwich. That's someone I've not seen before in a team. And then forwards, Lukaku, Tony, and Hwang. So yeah, there's a couple of things off the bat that like I probably wouldn't have. Mainly like Walker being first one that stood out to me. Just I think at that price he doesn't. I don't know. His attacking threat isn't great, even though he looks like in most games he's getting forward a lot, and with his pace and the way he drives forward, his delivery is not the best. I think I'd rather get a different City defender like Diaz, or maybe even chance it on Laporte, since he seems to be the preferred option, or get 2 Chelsea defenders rather than Walker. I think if you're going to have 2 City defenders, it's Cancelo and Diaz. What else stands out to you on this draft?
I presume the reason Walker is probably just that he can't get to Diaz. Like I presume that is the main reason. Like Diaz would be the obvious option. Yeah, I'm not convinced on Walker either. I suppose one thing that does go in his favour, he's mostly nailed, isn't he, game to game, especially so far this season. So if you are really struggling with cash, maybe not the worst move, but yeah, that's something that stands out. I think other than that, Sanchez is quite interesting that he's gone Sanchez. I think there's a few keepers now, aren't there? You've got Ramsdale. I think Ramsdale, Sanchez, and Raya are probably the three, aren't they? And Brentford's fixtures do take a nice turn. So maybe if you're only going for one of Mbeumo or Tony, he could be a serious option at 4.6. I think he is now.
Yeah, the thing to mention about Raya is he's racking up save points as well, isn't he? So I think there'll be quite a few games where he ends up with scores like Martinez did last year, where like whenever Aston Villa got a clean sheet, he got free bonus just because the number of saves he was making. The way Brentford play, conceding a lot of like chances from outside the box, etc. He could be a bit of a bonus point magnet. So yeah, and with Foster now that the manager's changed, it'd be interesting to see who he goes for. So the decision I made was I stuck with Sanchez and Ramsdale, just because if there is a game where Ramsdale gets rested for Leno, which could easily happen, I didn't want to have to think about bringing a keeper in or something like that. So yeah, I decided just to spend that extra 0.5 on having nailed Sanchez Brighton option there as that insurance. It was a bit annoying afterwards when I was thinking I should have just risked it and gone for Foster, but hopefully it'll pay off at some point. The other thing that stands out, I guess, in this team is Son, because not many were talking about him before the international break, but looking at his fixtures coming up, if you go back to the slide before where he has the fixtures mapped out, so there for Son, like obviously he's got Newcastle this week, which is a great fixture. Then it gets a bit harder: West Ham, United, Everton. But then from game week 12, Spurs have got that amazing run: Leeds, Burnley, Brentford, Norwich. Mm-hmm. So I imagine he's, with him being a fixtures man, he's probably looked ahead to that run and decided to go for Son for that reason. I mean, it's not like he's been, even though Spurs haven't been doing great, Son's been ticking over, hasn't he? So
is the second highest player in the game now? I think I read 42. Right. I'm sure I read that. No, maybe I've got that drastically wrong. Maybe it's second over a certain period. Do apologise.
Come on, we've got to keep the fake news to a minimum.
No, maybe it's points per minute. He's second behind Salah. That's what I've got because he missed a game, didn't he, for injury? Yeah, right. I'm pretty sure that's right. I've saved myself there. No doubt I'll be wrong there, but yeah, I'm sure he's second points per minute behind Salah just because he missed a fixture, didn't he, through injury? He missed the Crystal Palace game. So that is the deal there. Other than that, it's just a question of whether you're going to play 3 at the back, isn't it? 4 at the back. I would toy with playing 3 at the back personally. Have you Diaz, Cancelo? Either have one of Diaz or Cancelo, Rudiger, and Trent, and then stack your midfield and your forward line. Will probably be my thing. Then get White, get Livramento instead of a City defender, and then maybe have a play with your midfield and kind of risk it with Foden or someone like that. Put your money into there. I just think that's got a higher ceiling than Diaz, for example. He gets 6 points every game week.
So you mentioned Foden, and something we planned to talk about was best City attacking option. Like, what's your chief City correspondent?
Last week was last game week was Grealish, wasn't it? Everyone was playing it safe, and then Foden's kind of emerged from the wilderness. Really, he was injured up until a few game weeks ago, and that game against Liverpool kind of cemented his place as not only one of the best young players in the league, but one of the best players in the league for sure. Now, I think Pep's managed his situation.
God, you can tell someone's just got a job at City, can't you?
Would you not go along with that in terms of ability? Like watching him, one of the best players in the league, potentially.
Potentially, yeah. I don't think he's like. I wouldn't have him up there with like Salah and De Bruyne, and I wouldn't have him in that company. Yeah, but
he's like top 10, isn't he?
Yeah, probably. But I think just to say, like, you know, one of the best players in the league is, yeah, maybe. I just think we're going to have to watch out for this City bias going forwards. You're going to be doing all the City.
He proved it last year, didn't it? In the row,
Yeah.
He was kind of safe for the Champions League actually last year. He didn't play too many league matches, especially towards the end of the season, and he had some big Champions League performances against Dortmund and PSG.
Do you think that might happen again this season?
It's tricky, isn't it? Maybe towards the end of the season. I think this year, like Pep Roulette, it's impossible to fully gauge what's going on. But Sterling and Mahrez have played both Champions League games this year, so they might be safe for the group stages, and Foden might get the league, and then he'll probably take an assessment around the knockout stages whether that will continue. But he was definitely saved for the Champions League knockout. He gave City an extra dimension last year. Whether that'll be the same situation, I think now the City option is tricky. I think Torres at 6.9, even though he's probably not going to play every game, he actually picked up a knock for Spain, but then played the next game, so I won't worry about that. I just think I was playing a wild card now. I'd look to get into that City midfield, and as much as it hurts to be burnt, have you had Torres this season? I can't remember if you had someone else.
Didn't have him.
I just think if he's playing number 9, 6.9, but yeah, you just don't know, do you?
Because Jesus won't be around, will he, this week?
No.
Did he go?
Yeah, that Mahrez will probably, yeah.
So yeah, that's one less person to be rotated with. So yeah, it's just yes, it's so annoying, isn't it? With Torres, like the fact that people got him in a few weeks ago and then he didn't start for like 3 weeks in a row. I think I probably slightly prefer Foden in that he's not going to completely drop Foden's not going to like not get minutes for 3 weeks in a row or whatever, the same way Torres did, if you know. Like, so I think I'd probably lean to Foden, but yeah, it's really tricky. I think because I'm so unsure on it, I'm probably going to save my transfer this week rather than just give him out another week.
So say if you did get big folds in 7.9,
best player in the league.
Best player in the league. You downgraded Diaz to a Livramento, say, and you're still looking for a 1.6 there, aren't you? You're playing a 3-5-2 there, so you're probably looking at downgrading Hwang, aren't you? Can you afford that? Or you're having Hwang and then downgrading Tony to a 4.5. So this ends up quite similar to a team that you've got, isn't it? In terms of formation.
Yeah,
something like that. I think if you were playing a wild card this week, I just think the midfield is a bit more exciting. The only issue here is you've got White, Livramento, and a non-playing option. But I think with Livramento's fixtures, I don't think that's the worst case scenario, is it?
No, yeah, it does look okay. I think the only issue I'd have with it is that say for example, like Antonio keeps banging them in, or someone like Jimenez becomes essential, or you don't really have a way
forward line. Yeah.
So just to play about with it a little bit more. Say if you went Emil Smith Rowe instead of Mbomo.
Mm-hmm.
And then put in. We can change back to what you had, but like put in like Brownhill for Foden.
Who? Brownhill? Did you say?
Brownhill 4.4. Does that then give enough money for?
You got 9.5 there.
So could you then afford, say, like a Tony and an Antonio?
Hwang and Antonio?
Yeah, or Tony and Antonio.
Probably, yeah, you're probably just short depending on your team because Tony went up, didn't he? But yeah, that's not a bad. That's not a bad compromise. 3-4-3.
Because yeah, if you think about it, loads of people are going to be once Brentford's fixtures turn. A lot of people are going to be looking for Tony, so you're kind of getting yourself ahead of the curve on that, getting the penalty taker from Brentford in. Antonio's a hard person to set. Like I still really wouldn't want to lose Antonio. Where are you on that?
Yeah, no, obviously I've got Ben Rama and Antonio. I'm probably looking to shift on Ben Rama at some point. But I think West Ham's last game, that was against Brentford, wasn't it? Ben Rama was brilliant that game. I'm watching the highlights. So just a bit reluctant to... He's still performing really well. I don't think he's got points recently, other than the one against United. But he is still playing very well. It's not as if he's kind of fallen off a cliff. But it's just the added European, isn't it? Kind of fixtures and stuff.
Yeah, so I think what we've seen from this is it's kind of hard to fit in Son and the City midfield option into the same team. I think you probably have to, if you want to go for Son now rather than game week 12 when the fixtures turn amazing, you kind of have to maybe pick between which way you want to go. So yeah, if you were really keen on getting a Foden in, you could maybe just go Foden instead of Son, and then have a plan to get Son in game week 12, which would also be fine.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll move on because just a bit conscious of time, but I do think Son ahead of that fixture list. He's not a bad person to have, isn't it? And he also, that price point, it doesn't put De Bruyne too out of the question. Obviously, you can jump to any other midfielder, but kind of makes that option because, say, De Bruyne starts scoring or assisting for fun. He's looked a bit off the pace first few games, but he's just coming back from that ankle injury. But I think if City start firing and he's nailed on 90 minutes, man, which you'd expect him to be, that makes it easier, doesn't it, to kind of move. But and then you've got Son there for the fixtures, the great fixtures.
Yeah, so just to finish on this, then we're mentioning Brentford's fixtures. The reason we're so keen on having a Tony or a Mbomo. So from game week 9, their fixtures are Leicester, Burnley, Norwich, Newcastle, Everton. So game week 9 to 13 is really good. And then they've got Tottenham in 14, and then Leeds and Watford. And I think I read
Trinity, Leeds, Norwich, and Newcastle.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and I think I read somewhere before on I think Fantasy Scout tweeted that like every team they've got after Chelsea in that run is in the bottom half for expected goals conceded. So teams you want to be targeting, they're all there. So yeah, one of them, if not both, look really good prospects for people wildcarding this week, I think. Should we move on?
Nice. Yeah, we'll move on to our game this year. So our Snog, marry, avoid, or buy, hold, sell is the equivalent in the FPL world. So this is a man that we've just talked about a lot on the podcast this week. So the first name that I'm kind of looking to get in over the next few weeks is Heung-min Son. It'll be interesting to see. Oh, go on.
I was just going to say it's a bit of a heartthrob in South Korea, isn't it? You might have to join the queue to try and snog Son. I mean, he's got a lot of he's got a lot of female admirers out in that part of the world. They might come for you in the comments.
I'll have to push him aside, but the interesting thing will be if Mr. Harold Kane kind of gets a bit of form together, gives an alternative option, because I do think, well, going off recent form, maybe it's not a necessity, but I do think Tottenham, because if they don't start firing under Nuno, there probably will be a change of manager before that fixture run. So you're going to get a player and then a more attacking team either way, whatever happens. I think, because I don't think Nuno will be kind of accepted kind of playing defensive football for that long. So I do think ahead of that run, have that in mind, that they'll be playing either better football under Nuno or they will have another manager in. And I just think, yeah, he's a great FPL asset over the years. Don't need to tell anyone about this. And also, the interesting thing is the big chances kind of for Son this year are quite low compared to his points tally. But we know from the past that him and players like Danny Ings, like taking into consideration how good of a finisher he is. So stats don't always tell the complete picture with Son. As long as if he's looking lively in a game, which for a few games at the start of the season under Nuno, when the form dipped, he didn't. But then the last game, he did look good again, didn't he? Got a goal and assist, I think. So, yeah, one to look at, and one that I've got firmly in my radar for the next few weeks.
So you're snogging your son, first time for incest on the podcast. We'll have to flag this one as for over 18s when we upload to the podcast platforms later.
Cheers for that. So this is the stat that I saw. So Heung-min Son 7 points per game this season. Only Mo Salah fares better in midfield. He's shooting more frequently this campaign. Yeah, shot every 27 minutes compared to every 46 last campaign. So almost as if Nuno's kind of building his team around Son. And Kane's more of a creator, which we saw last year. Kane's still not firing on all cylinders. Obviously, the come down from summer and what happened there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next year. I do think if Tottenham have a good game this weekend and Son scores a couple against... Do they play this weekend? It's Newcastle, isn't it? I think people will start to jump on him. So yeah, if you want to get ahead of the curve, I think I was playing a wild card. He'd definitely be in my team.
So yeah, would you do that over getting a Foden then, or if you had to decide between getting Son or a City? Because I think the fact that he's so nailed just would tips it over the edge, doesn't it? If you have to make that decision.
I think if he can get there, obviously taking into consideration is a few million more, isn't it, than the City midfielder? But I think if he can get there, he's probably a no-brainer, Son.
Because yeah, like Rafinha and Salah are lots, like in most people's drafts. So yeah, it probably does come down to. It probably comes down to between Spurs and City for one of the other ones. But yeah, let's get into who you're walking down the aisle.
I've gone controversial this week. I feel like I'm fighting the Shane Duffy train every week, but I think last game week again he had 2 attempts on goal, shots on target, and he's top of all defenders. I think shots on target, shots in the box, and if he's going to get a big haul, it's going to be this weekend, isn't it, against Norwich? So yeah, it's definitely my starting lineup for this week. Obviously, people playing the wild card, Livramento is probably a more attractive option just because of the fixtures. But I still think he's providing excellent value at 4.3 he is now. And in a season where there's not been too many success stories for me personally, he's been one so far. And I'm looking forward to that Norwich game this weekend as a double Brighton defence. But no doubt they'll lose 1-0 now, and I've said this. But yeah, just thought it'd be a bit different, mix it up this week.
Yeah, I mean, I know you don't have the best standards, but I think you could set your marriage prospects a bit higher than Duffy, I would have thought. But it's interesting to see where your head's at. But no, I do get what you're saying. I think probably gonna check his anytime goal scorer odds actually after this, see if they're tempting with the Norwich fixture in mind.
It's not a bad shout.
Yeah. And then you avoid the least favourable position. So
it probably was going to be Ronaldo, but you did Ronaldo last week. I just think after what happened, I was kind of burnt by the situation. I do think Ronaldo's got a better fixture this weekend. The interesting one around Sarr is the new manager bounce, isn't it? Like Ranieri could pretty much build his team around Sarr. You don't know what's going to happen, or he could revert to 2 strikers that he kind of Leicester was the last Premier League team he was at. Obviously famous Okazaki and Vardy up top. But even in that team, Mahrez, well, that was his breakout season anyway, they won the league. So I think if Watford are going to stay up, they probably need to get the best out of this man. So it'd be interesting to see what the Tinkerman can do to his tactics. But for now, he's someone that I'm looking to get out of my team, unless I probably will give him the next 2 because it's Liverpool and then Southampton, which is decent enough fixture, I think. And I think if the new manager bounce is going to happen, you would notice with 2 games, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it was Liverpool last season. Well, not last season, the season before last, where he sort of announced himself in the Premier League, wasn't it? When he did he get a brace in that game or something?
Yeah, it's brilliant. 4-0. 4-0.
Yeah, it was a mad game. I guess also with Liverpool not having Alisson this week, probably goes in one thing going in Watford's favour. But yeah, I do think that the fixtures have definitely turned for Watford. That run that they had of Leeds and Norwich, and who was the other one they had? Leeds, Norwich, and Newcastle. Where I think he scored in every game. I don't think he'll be able to replicate those kind of returns with the stats he's showing in the fixtures coming up. So yeah, all decent shouts.
Sweet. Yeah, so that's who I'm snogging, marrying, avoiding this week. We'll finish off with the premium player segment. So this is just where we kind of look to who we're going to captain over the next few weeks, and those are the kind of changes that we're going to make. I think this week is probably quite easy one this week, isn't it, with Mo Salah? Although Chelsea against Brentford is a bit enticing, but I just think the way Salah's playing, obviously against City, the toughest defence in the league, still gets 2 goals. I think when he's playing Watford, it's kind of an opportunity that you can't really give up the captains.
Yeah, the fact that goal against City, where he just was making like elite defenders look like idiots just to waltz through. Yeah, I can't back against Salah this week, and Brentford have shown they've got something about them. So yeah, that Chelsea Brentford fixing as it did a few weeks ago. What about next week?
The only other alternative, I don't think Lukaku could easily score a couple, but I think the only one that probably is enticing for me would be a real differential is Son if you've got him against Newcastle, because
true.
I think if they get an early goal, especially through Son, I think that's a way at Newcastle, and then the Newcastle fans will really start to give it to Bruce. I think put the pressure on. So that'll be an interesting game, especially if Spurs get an early goal.
Yeah, no, that is a good shout. I think. Yeah, I was just trying to think. Then, if I did have Son, would I risk it? But I still wouldn't.
I don't think. I think he'd be the alternative.
And then, game week 9, Chelsea have the prime plum Norwich fixture. Yeah. Liverpool have got United.
Liverpool, yeah.
So, yeah, I think I'd have to go Lukaku, even though Salah's just shown he can score 2 against Chelsea against City. The fact that I think the Norwich fixture just overrides everything. It's just it's too hard to ignore. The only thing that could maybe ruin it is if there's like minutes managed for Lukaku, like with the Champions League game around that time. But even in like 60 minutes, he could get a hat trick against Norwich. So yeah, really hard to ignore. But then, if Salah goes off again this week, I mean, he could make it really hard to take the captaincy off him. And if Varane and Maguire aren't back for United, I mean, United could end up looking like Norwich. So yeah, we'll probably have to revisit that one next week after this week's games.
And then after that, you probably got the same dilemma again. Lukaku with a nice fixture at Newcastle, depending on what happens there. Liverpool, Brighton, which is a tough fixture, but probably will be tempted by Salah again. So, and then City have that good run, but no one's really emerged yet. So it is probably Lukaku, Salah, and a sprinkle of Son is the dilemma over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean the one of the reasons I wildcarded was for this Chelsea run. Like Lukaku he's a great captaincy option for the next 5 fixtures. So definitely someone to get in on your wildcard if you're doing it this week, or someone to think about for the next few.
I think that's it, unless you've got anything to add. I think I'm looking forward to getting back to it. up until probably Saturday night when my team's bombed again, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's all happened on the stream. We've had me freezing, your job announcement, my gym story, and a bit of incest from you at the end.
Yeah, we might make it one day.
Yeah, but good luck if you're wildcarding this week. Drop us a like on YouTube if you've enjoyed it, and podcast listeners, if you've got the option to leave a review where you listen to your podcasts, please do that. And then catch you next week.
See you then.